the UN Secretary General speaking there earlier. For more on this story, we can bring in Elisabeth Kendall, Senior Research Fellow in Arabic and Islamic Studies at Pembroke College at Oxford University. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the programme today. How significant is this breakthrough in Sweden?
This breakthrough is very significant. Until today, it seemed just great that the talks had hung together, they hadn't collapsed, the Houthis had arrived, and that a prisoner exchange had been agreed. But today we heard this wonderful news from Antonio Guterres that a ceasefire has actually been agreed, not just in Hodeida port, but around the whole of Hodeida governorate. And that is crucial for allowing in very, very urgent aid. So everyone's delighted that that came together at the last minute. But the UN Secretary General also mentioned that agreement had been reached on easing tensions around Taiz, another vital battlefront, which is currently impacting the lives of thousands and thousands of Yemenis. So that's further good news. And we have a date for the next round of talks, the end of next month, as you mentioned. So things are looking much more positive today than we dared hope.
Okay, we have been getting a positive picture, but with regards to the ceasefire in Hodeida, which you're talking about, the two sides have not really signed any piece of paper. What do you make of this high level of trust which has suddenly been established over this past week?
I think that actually nailing down the detail will still be extremely difficult. But to get that announcement and to get both of the main warring sides on camera shaking hands over it is significant. We couldn't have hoped for more than that. We'll probably learn a bit more when the outcomes of this week of peace talks are given to the United Nations Security Council tomorrow. We might then learn of more details because there are many other matters still up in the air, not just the details of the ceasefire, but also the details of other imminent measures such as opening Sana'a airport. How is that going to work? How a revenue is going to be shared from the port. What exactly is this mutual deployment force? Is it going to be both Houthis and government soldiers? There's a much that still needs to be decided. You're right.
Now, so many breakthroughs we've seen this time around, that, as you said, the reopening of the airport over in Sana'a for domestic flights, the ceasefire in Hodeida. Do you think we're getting all this because there's been a shift in attitudes to the conflict in Yemen, particularly from the United States?
I think you're right. I think that the growing international pressure, and in particular from the United States, has focused the warring parties and perhaps in particular the coalition, the Saudi-led coalition, on having to find an agreement. Also, we are seeing this famine that has been much talked about over the last 18 months now becoming a reality. Neither of these main warring sides wishes to be responsible for that. So both need to be seen to make compromises. And that's what we're seeing. But I must stress that there is a very long way to go. There are so many matters that need to be ironed out before any kind of peace could be achieved. And by that, I mean a much more comprehensive group of actors needs to be brought into the peace talks. There have to be some very difficult discussions about how power and territory and resources are divided around Yemen, about what the future shape of Yemen will be. Will it be a united country? Will it be different states? Will it be federal regions? There's a lot left to discuss, but this is a good start.
You mentioned a comprehensive group of actors. Who are you referring to? Are you talking about the two regional powers who are essentially fighting their proxy war in Yemen?
I think actually it's much more important to get a comprehensive group of actors together who are inside Yemen. We have so many warring sides domestically, and by that I mean those within the former south of Yemen, those within the east of Yemen, in other secessionist areas. There are secessionist groups in Hadramaut, in Al-Mahra. There are many tribes who have their own grievances, both in the south and in central Yemen, and indeed in the north. All of these actors need to be brought together. And I think that that will be the most major way of solving Yemen's problems, leaving aside the external actors like Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Elisabeth Kendall, thank you very much for joining us on the program today.